Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Coffee with the Coaches. Obviously, you can see there's 3 of us today. So I'm Kim. I'm the RN health coach for Lenovo. I primarily serve the Chicago and Santa Clara populations. With me is my co-host, co-partner, PIC, partner in crime, Holly. She does mostly North Carolina. We both kind of handle the remote populations. And then today's special guest is EXOS program manager Chris Powell. Everybody from North Carolina probably knows this guy.
Good morning, everybody.
He spends a lot of time at the gym in North Carolina. You've probably seen him if you've ever stepped in the gym because he's always around. Obviously, we're all
glitching up already.
So, well, Chris is fixing his stuff. So just a little quick intro. Welcome to Coffee with the Coaches. This is very casual conversation. We have Chris on for men's health. Men's health.
Hey, I'm gonna. Sorry to start off this way already, but it's not letting me do my webcam unless I switch over to my other internet. So I will write back. Don't talk about me too bad.
All right. Okay, good. Only to your face. So men's health is one of our big themes for September. So we have Chris on Coffee with the Coaches today. We also have a men's health webinar coming up next week. We put the information for that in the resources. So if you guys are looking for that link, it also went out in the email that comes out monthly. So all the information is in there. And then we're just pretty much waiting for Chris to get back so we can start to ask him about men's health. So we're going to cover men's health, barriers to men's health, attitudes towards men's health, all sorts of topics. Welcome back, Chris.
Yeah. And just a reminder to everybody who's listening, you know, we really want this to be a very casual, a very laid back conversation. We're not going to be showing a presentation. Like Kim said, we're going to be doing a men's health presentation on the 10th of September. So we want it to be as interactive as possible. So if you have something to add to the conversation, if you have questions about anything that Chris or Kim and I are saying, please go ahead and throw them into the chat box and we will address them as you put them in. So we want this to be as helpful to you guys as possible. That's why we do this. So with that, let's get started.
Yeah, so one more thing with the questions. Questions are always, nobody's gonna know your identity unless you want us to say your name. We keep everything confidential, everything is private, nobody knows who anything comes from. But I mean, if you want us to say, you know, from so-and-so, cool, we'll do it. So to start off today, we're going to start with a poll. So this is one of the questions that Chris wanted to ask, and I love it. So who has the most influence on reaching your destination? Is it your manager? Is it your spouse? Is it your kids, colleagues, or yourself? Give everybody a couple of questions. I love it.
Yeah, it is a really good question because I don't think that's something that we typically think about, right?
I also love the responses. I can see the responses early because I'm the one doing the polling and I love it.
Oh, I can't wait.
Staying a little quiet so I can see the response. I want to see how the room reads.
All right, so we're gonna close it and then we'll share. So 11% said spouse. I'm not so mad about it. Like, I kind of understand why you might say that. You know, sometimes that's how the relationship works. But an overwhelmingly amount of people said myself. So that's great.
Well, I can't exactly argue with whoever said my spouse because my spouse does have a lot of say-so that goes on in my life. But so kind of the point I wanted to start off with, and it might be early for some people to start thinking about ownership today. Hopefully you had some coffee, but just really, you know, how important it is to take ownership in whatever you're doing. So I'll use myself as the example when we're on site working with clients and working with people. Over the years, some people want, you know, they want a trainer to get them in shape. You know, they want a coach to get them where they want to be, and try to have these talks early on. You know, I'm not going to get you where you want to go, and most likely Holly and Kim, no matter how great they are not going to get you where you want to go. It really comes down to you taking ownership in what you want to do. You know, unless we're with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is impossible, there's a lot of ownership you have to take. One of my favorite, you know, quotes I enjoy is, if not me, then who? So, you know, you have to look at everything that you want to do, whether it's your fitness goals, whether it's your goals with your family. A lot of that stuff will change throughout time. just taking that ownership and not looking to somebody like us to just be that solution. Think of us as a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, absolutely. I know like Holly and I both use, it kind of got ingrained in us when we did our motivational interviewing stuff that, you know, like we're the GPS in the car. Like we don't actually get you there. We give you the directions, we give you the tools, but like you said, like we can't be there every minute of every day to knock the donut out of your hand, or to make sure that your form is correct in the gym, or, you know, to make sure that when you go out to eat, you don't always get dessert. Like I think the personal accountability piece is huge. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, and a big pill to swallow sometimes.
Yeah. I think especially now, so much it's exploded with what's happened over the past few months of how much we really do have to rely more on ourselves. You know, if you're not going to the office anymore, if you're not able to go to the gym anymore, if you're not able to pop into Holly's office, just walking down the hallway, or Kim's office, you know, we all just got a quick awakening of how important it is. And some people, I think, pivoted quickly, and some that we're still working with aren't as much, which is why one of the reasons I wanted to address this today. And, you know, just the importance of accountability and trying to figure out how to make it work for yourself.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting from a couple of different perspectives. I think, Kim, you know, you hit it on the nose. And, you know, when we're working with people, and Chris, when you're working with people, you know, we can't make you change. You have to change on the inside. But when it comes to men's health, right? So, you know, we talk about going to the gym and wanting to lose weight and those sorts of things, which are all part and parcel of men's health. What is it from that motivation perspective that prevents, and I'll say men because we're specifically just talking about men today, but what is it from a male perspective that why don't some men have that motivation, or what is preventing them from, you know, moving forward and taking action where their health is concerned? Right. So before you could, so one of the statistics that I wanted to throw out there today, you know, just to throw some science in here, is that, you know, men don't live as long as women. And, you know, that's been the case all throughout history. And while we've really bridged that gap, you know, by a couple of years, men still are living on average 5 years less than women. And I think that motivation and that drive to, you know, do good for yourself is lacking in some ways. I mean, there's a lot more to it. There's safety. You guys take way more risks than us, that sort of thing. But you know, what do you think is behind that lack of, I guess, for lack of a better word, that guide, that internal guide?
And everything you thought out is I completely agree with. I think, you know, risk factor as far as just men take more risks, stuff like that can all play into it. But actually back when I was in college, so I was, you know, 19-ish years old, and I heard my professor say this, and I kind of, in my mind, I'm like, no, that's not true. As I've gotten older, I think it is. With men, I think it's fear. And a lot of times I think going to the doctor, a lot of men don't want to know the results. They don't want to know that there may not be where they want to be. I know some of the male clients I work with, you know, they don't say this, but I can tell they don't want to branch outside of what they're already doing because they're so strong at what they're doing that if they go do a new modality, whether, you know, we'll go to the extreme of yoga or something like that, they might be weak. They might be looked at as weak, and they're afraid to look weak. And I hate to, you know, I don't want to make people defensive by saying that, but I really do think it is a lot of fear. And I can say that personally. I don't want to look weak in front of certain people. I don't want to look weak in front of my children or my spouse. So sometimes I'm hesitant to do things, and actually due to fear.
I think that's a really good point. I think that speaks a lot of truth for a lot of people. I think that, like, being inadequate is a fear for everybody. And I know, like, as a male who's typically the provider, like, gender roles aside, you know, that's a whole other conversation we can talk about. But I think men have this internal drive to provide and to be like the stronger of the household. And that's just kind of been how it's been for a lot of cultures and a lot of people. So I can definitely see that being a huge barrier for them to go to the doctor, you know, usually with their spouse. That's something I think people sometimes do together. and then maybe have poor results, or hear that your blood pressure's high, or that you're overweight, or you're not the athlete you were in college. Like, I've had that day. I was like, man, I'm not who I used to be 10 years ago. Like, that's a big pill to swallow for people. And then trying to have that attitude of always looking to learn, always looking to get better when you've gotten comfortable in something that you do frequently, I guess, if that makes sense.
I think too, one of the things that I stress with a lot of my clients, whether it's men or women, is that when you think about, and I do have a lot of clients, like myself too, like when you're at a stage of, when you really feel healthy, your numbers are good, life is just going well, right? So we use that as the standard. This is who I can be, right? But I think we as a society, and I think men specifically, and I don't want to speak in general terms, but a lot of men that I've encountered feel like I need to be where I was back then. And the reminder is that's a different stage in your life, right? And we go through these different stages in our lives, and when you're in college, that's totally different. You didn't have a full-time job, and you were young, and you were partying, and your metabolism was different, and your lean muscle mass was different, and you were still growing, right? And we forget that we're still growing until we're like 25. And then once you leave college, you come into a new phase. You've got a new job, and it's busy, and maybe you have a house and responsibilities. That's a very different stage in your life. And so what you are capable of doing with your time, your money, your energy at one stage isn't the same as it is. And then there's the other stages when, as you get older and you have kids and more responsibilities and that sort of thing. So, one of the big tips that I just want to make sure that everyone is hearing today is that recognize that the stage that you're in will change. And it's usually a 5 to 10 year span when that changes for people. And the best you that you can be is the best you that you can be in the here and now, right? That's the ultimate goal, right? It's not, don't aim for who you used to be or who you think you can be. Aim for who you can be in the here and now. That's my big one.
And we like to talk a lot about performance, and a lot of people kind of get hesitant by that word, because when a lot of people think about performance, I'm going to get you to perform better. If people think, well, I don't care about running a 40-yard dash or deadlifting, performance is relative to what you need to do to perform well. So it could be walking down the street with your grandkids. It could be picking up pick up your kids off the floor. It could be doing whatever you need to perform. But we like to use that word to just overall, it relates to anybody, but at first can come off as quite intimidating. People don't think we're listening. We're like, yeah, I'm gonna get you to perform better. And they're like, I don't want to perform better. It's just, we're gonna get you to go where you need to go in your life right now.
Yeah. I like that piece a lot. Real quick, I'm just gonna put another poll out there for everybody. So I just kind of want to get a kind of a global feeling of one of these things. So how often do you go to the doctor? Annually, and then when I'm sick, only when I'm sick, on the rarest of occasions, wait, I'm supposed to have a doctor, or other, and then you can type in the chat box and we can discuss it.
I feel like you gave some good male answers there.
I was trying to, I'm trying not to have just like yes, no, boring answers. We're definitely trying to make this more exciting. Oh man, this is amazing. Spoiler alert, 100% of people answered, which was 80% of the audience says they go annually and when they're sick.
What?
We're just going to give you all a round of applause because that's amazing. That's way better, no offense, than I expected.
Yeah, absolutely. Holy moly, that's insane.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's fantastic.
So I don't think we need to touch on that. So cool.
All right.
Keep doing what you're doing. Chris, I know that your schedule has changed since working at home. Like you've kind of readjusted your work schedule and done things a little bit differently. I know a big complaint we hear from clients is I don't have time, or I'm working too much, or I have my kids at home. Can you speak a little bit to how you've changed your schedule to make it work for you and your family to still meet your work commitments?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the beginning, I think like most people, we were looking at this as short term, and I was grinding. My sleep, I had, at that time, I had a 5-month-old and I had a 3-year-old. My wife was full-time, I worked full-time. So to be honest, I was sleeping maybe 5 hours a night. I was working early in the morning, working late at night, and then had the kids during the day. But that was not achievable for long term. I could feel my health was going down, the stress in the household was going up. So we had to really readjust. So as far as meeting their obligations, meeting my obligations, there's definitely been some sacrifice. It was really where we talk. People often say, "I don't have enough time." Like, we all have 24 hours. You need to figure out what you want to prioritize. I mean, if you want to do Netflix every night for an hour, it's gonna pull away from something else. So my wife and I quickly realized that to move forward, our relaxed time, our personal kind of chill time was going to be a big sacrifice, because we needed to keep our health, we needed to keep our children happy, we needed to keep our obligations to our jobs. So really, we kind of sat down with it, what was a need and what wasn't. And so in the mornings, I still do get up. Y'all receive emails from me at about 5:30 a.m. I still start my day at 5 a.m., which is what we did when we were on site. That's the time the gym opened. So that's nothing new for me. So I typically work early in the morning, and then I stop working about 8 a.m. And then I take over for the kids, and my wife starts her day for a few hours. And then we just make sure the night before, we know each other's calendars. I'd love to say we know it for the whole week, but y'all know how calendars are. There's no reason to tell you what your calendar is on Monday for the week. This is going to change. So every night we talk about what we can and cannot miss, what we need to do. So really, it's just the communication aspect is probably the biggest thing I would narrow down on, and just really prioritizing what's a need versus want. It definitely wasn't easy in the beginning. I will say one thing. I know I posted this on Instagram recently for our page, but I'm pretty selfish about my workouts, or used to be. I always wanted to work out alone. It was my time, and I realized that wasn't fair to anybody anymore. So my wife and I started working out together more often. We bring the kids out here. My 3-year-old she's now 4. She has her own little 15-pound kettlebell that she loves to mess around with. We got our gymnastics bar over here off screen, you can't see. And my 1-year-old now, he doesn't care what's going on. But they join us out, taking care of their bodies. And
I lost Chris's sound.
Lost you on sound?
You're just kind of spotty. That's
Well, I'll wrap it up with saying, it's been great for us to do that kind of stuff together instead of having just my time.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think you're instilling habits in them. Like, I mean, I'm not a parent yet. Everybody knows I'm going to be in a couple months, so that'll be interesting. That being said, from all the parenting books I've read and the parents I've talked to, and Holly is a great example, like, you lead by example. Like, you can tell them one thing, but if they see you doing that, and they see you caring for your health, and they see you going to the gym, and they see you feeding and fueling your body correctly, that's what's going to make them have those habits. Not that you tell them, like, hey, eat your vegetables. Well, when you eat your vegetables and you've always eaten your vegetables, they're going to do that too. So I think that's huge that you're leading by example for them, and that's going to help them grow into happier, healthier adults as well.
You're a real modern man, Chris, because that, I think, is, and I say that in all honesty, just because I feel like a lot more men of your generation are tending to work that way, like, in sync with their wives, because most wives are working, and so you're making your schedules work together. Now, I know that there are some families whose schedules are just kind of like, not quite as flexible as some of ours might be. So that definitely presents its own challenge. But I love the fact that you were talking about, you and your wife are supporting each other in your wellness. Like, you were really selfish about it, but now it's a family thing, right? And so, if we can, when we can, I think that's a really good tip for people, for men and women in general, is, okay, maybe that's what you need to kind of get going, get moving, reestablish a new sort of, normal with this crazy pandemic stay at home, better at home sort of situation. So I really love that. Before we move on real quick, I did get a couple of questions, which were statements from people about the last poll, because we do have quite a few women on the polls, and like, you know, are the results skewed because we've got some women on the polls? And actually that's a really good point, because we're actually looking at 50% female versus male. So, you know, if we were to do that poll again, what percentage of the men get their annual checkups and physicals? So thank you for pointing that out. That makes a lot of sense. So we'll take that one with a grain of salt. We'll still say yay because almost everybody did it. So
Women's health is October, so we'll cover women's health then. So we'll have that poll question again. I also think it's important too to just touch on, like, you know, the bias that is present in the people that are attending these meetings, right? People that are like coming to this, like they obviously care about their health. You're not signing in with us if you're just like, yeah, whatever, I'm just gonna play it. You don't get extra credit for this. You don't get a bonus. Nobody sends you money. Like, if you want to log into this, you obviously care about your health. So that being said, if anybody can think of any ideas that we can use or you can use to promote this to other people that maybe don't have that perspective, definitely let us know. We're always open to new ideas and how we can kind of continue to promote and push forwards, and change our content too to make it as interesting as we can. So I'm going to launch another poll question. You can tell by this wording that this was contributed by Chris, because Holly and I don't do much training philosophy. So which one best describes your training philosophy? I think this is really good. I'm really interested in this because I feel like I've been through all of these myself. Like, sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the other. When I was in my 20s, it was mostly one of them. So we'll give everybody a couple more seconds to answer. All right. So we are pretty, I would call it a pretty even split. So feeling good, showing up and listening to your body, which is great. I think this is, I mean, I don't want to take all the credit for this, us as benefits providers, but I know there's been a big push from all of us collectively to definitely be more mindful and aware. And I know, Chris, your team pushes mobility and, like, you know, other type of exercises that's not just grip and rip and tear shit up anymore. I mean, those workouts have a time and a place, but I think this speaks volume to what you guys are doing. So if you just want to touch quick on, you know, like how that stuff is different, how functional movement affects and makes life easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was kind of hoping that I was going to get some answers on the top part so I could address more recovery, but it sounds like this group doesn't need that big talk. I love the fact that a lot of people did the whole listen to your body. We actually started implementing a hand dynamometer before workouts where we could gauge people's physical level that day. So say somebody typically squeezes a 20 and they come in that day and I say, Tim, how you feeling? And you go, I'm feeling good. And you squeeze an 8, I know you're not feeling good. You may want to go at it, but I know you probably didn't sleep last night. You might be stressed. So we're going to move your workout, whether I tell you that or not. I'm going to move your workout to more mobility, less breaking you down, more of you making sure you feel good when you leave. So we use strategies like that. Some people are very honest. Some people, like me, I'm going to tell you I'm always ready to go.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, finding that balance. You know, I'll be a little biased here. A lot of times, guys, the majority of the ones I work with, they just want to get strong. They care less about mobility. They could care less about, you know, anything that doesn't make them get stronger until they hit about 35 and they realize, like, oh, I messed up. I should have been prioritizing that movement pattern. You know, everything just starts locking up. You can't move the way you did because your body is now, you know, you're going to have to really regress back to trying to find that mobility, find that flexibility again. This group, again, I don't have to go in that whole rant. It sounds like they're pretty sold for that. But yeah, really finding, you know, challenging yourself in all modalities is wonderful. Of course, if there's a stage in your life where you signed up for a half marathon, you're going to run it. Or if there's a stage in your life where you're going on that beach trip with all your friends, you might be doing more aesthetic training, you might be lifting more weights. You know, so you swing that pendulum back and forth, that's absolutely fine, but you never want to live on one side or the other for too long. Try to swing back every once in a while, and then you can hit back, and you'll see how much of a difference that makes, especially if you hit the plateau. Do whatever you're not doing. Stop doing what you're doing. Do whatever. It doesn't even matter what you were doing. Just stop it for a little while, and then go back, and you'll see how much you start to progress back in.
Yeah.
It's really that simple of what we do in our programming, almost that simple what we do in our programming. One of the first questions we ask you is, what have you been doing? And if somebody says, I've been lifting, I do 3 reps and everything for the past 25 years, you're like, all right, we're going to stop doing 3 reps everything for the next while. And we're going to swing it back.
Yeah, I think there's not much more humbling than doing a new movement and you're like, oh wow, I can't do this. Or like, you know, my personal limitations are in my shoulders, so anything over my head is super challenging and super humbling when, like, you know, I can deadlift or squat XYZ, but then I go to lift over my head and I can't lift a broomstick. Like, whoo, like that gets you. Like, it's just nice. And it's nice, like, you guys are super supportive. Hallie and I try to do the same thing through coaching. Like, you have that safe space for someone to be like, hey, like, this is a potential area of weakness for you that could cause you trouble down the road. Let's work on that so it doesn't hurt you. So when you pick up your child, or you mow the lawn, or you do the weed whacking, or the landscaping that you're probably doing because you're at home, you don't, you know, pull your back muscles or, you know, rip your shoulders to shreds.
Mm-hmm. I think it's what I heard, Chris, was you saying, you know, that pendulum. I love that analogy, and it's all about balance, right? It's all about balance, and I think that, you know, whether it's physical fitness, mental fitness, whatever part of your life that you are hoping to work on, it's just about balance. So before we end here, I do want to throw a little bit of fun at you. So, you know, we are going to be doing a whole men's health webinar, and I really hope that, you know, you guys join us for that. And it's going to be much more in depth about mental health. We're really going to touch on that. Physical health, the screenings that are required for men at different age groups, that sort of thing. We do have a couple of handouts attached to the session today. One of them is cancer screenings for men. That's not the fun part. But when I was doing some research to try and, you know, we like to look at articles and the science and some data and what have you. And of course, you know, when you're scouring the internet for some things, sometimes you find really fun things. Now, Men's Health magazine, I'm not sure if any of the men on here read it or not. I don't read it, but I have come across it before, and it's kind of like Cosmopolitan, I think, for women, but it does have some sciencey stuff in there. So I found a couple of different lists about, you know, 25 or 50 things that you can do as a man to improve your health. And so they're just different, right? They're different than a cancer screening. They're different than, you know, going to the doctor annually, or, you know, hitting the gym 150 minutes a week or whatever. So I do just want to hit on a couple of those, and I'd love to get your thoughts if you have any of them. Because there are a couple of them, Chris, that I think are relevant. So we may go over here just a couple minutes, but bear with me. So one of them is, this is kind of neat, to avoid low back pain on long car drives. And so this also kind of goes to physical fitness and keeping your core strong. It says to keep your rear view mirror up so that you'll prevent yourself from slouching. So you actually have to sit straighter up in order to see out your rear view mirror. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah,
Never thought about that one, right?
Yeah, I love it, actually. Yeah.
I had never thought about this one either. So if you are a back sleeper and maybe a snorer and maybe a sleep apnea patient, unfortunately, this is going to be super uncomfortable. But I thought this was a very unique, very weird way of trying to avoid that. It says to tape a golf ball to the back of your shorts or your pajamas so that you sleep more on your side than you do on your back. I was like, okay. From a mental health perspective, compliment your spouse.
I did see that one, and it talks about how, like, healthier people and healthier marriages lead to, like, less sickness and less illness, and, like, yeah, I think that's huge.
It is huge.
Talk about it and having a, you know, like that working relationship with your spouse, like everybody's happier. Like when you communicate, everybody's happier. Like everybody wins.
I love that one. You know, I'm not much of the reading the love language type of books, but it is amazing how, even just, you know, we've been married almost 10 years now, and it's, you know, start to realize what I think I'm doing that which she might appreciate, she doesn't. She, you know, that doesn't mean she doesn't appreciate it, but, you know, some people want it verbalized, some people want touch, some people want gifts, and what I think is special is absolutely opposite of my wife thinks is special. So I've had to learn to stop thinking what I'm doing to make me happy is going to make her happy, vice versa. So, you know, if I would have read a book, I probably would have figured that out 8 years ago. But it took 10 years to figure that one out.
Better earlier than never.
Right? And so this is one that I know for a fact, and Kim, you know for a fact too. And for anybody out there who is scheduling an elective surgery, don't schedule your elective surgery for July or August. And the reason is that new interns, new medical students, new residents, they are all just coming into school. And so if you want to schedule an elective surgery, do it in the spring when everybody is really, especially if you're doing it at a teaching hospital, do it in the late spring, because then they have a lot more experience if they're going to be putting their hands on your body.
Yeah, love you all, appreciate what you're doing. Everybody has to practice, but if it's an elective surgery, which means like on your time, pick another time.
I just thought that was funny. Now, of course, we have, yeah. So we always dreaded July when we were in the hospital. We're like, oh God, here we go again, the newbies. Isn't it terrible? It's terrible. Okay, the last one I want to finish on, it's a more serious one, and then we'll let you guys go, is take vitamin G. Any guesses?
Goodness. Gratitude,
right? I say in most of my mindfulness classes, and we do practice gratitude in most of the sessions that I do, gratitude is powerful medicine. It's been proven to increase your happiness, decrease your stress, and even as simple as starting to say thank you for little things. Just start saying thank you to people. Thank you for that comprehensive email. Thank you for, thank you for grabbing me a coffee. That was super kind. So just practicing gratitude on a daily basis can decrease your stress significantly, like by 75%. So I feel like we're running out of time. So I want to thank you, Chris, so much for being here. We really appreciate you and everything that you do for Power Up, for all of our patients, for your clients, for everything. So thanks for being with us today.
Back at y'all. Thank y'all very much for having me. It went way too fast.
I know. We could do this forever. We got to thank you, Chris. We got to thank you, Chris, from somebody in the audience. So if there's anything that we haven't touched on, please send us a note. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about, send us an email. We will get back to you. If we don't have the answer right away, we will get it for you. Same thing, I'm sure that Chris is available. Power Up or EXOS is available for personal training, for doing all of that stuff virtually that they would do while we were in center. So please keep that in mind when it comes to your health. Kim and I are also available. Please check out lenovobenefits.com. All of the events that we have, all of the services that will improve your mental, your physical, your all around health from a holistic way to science to everything is going to be found on Lenovo Benefits. So thanks everybody for joining us today. We appreciate you being here, and we will talk to you soon.
Have a good one.
Bye, y'all.